Remember when taking back control meant something?
A more prosperous and safer future awaits us outside the EU.
Well, thanks to the Brexit reset deal with Keir Starmer, we're now importing EU rules like they're on sale. Brexit, the gift that keeps on taking. And officially, it makes the UK a rule taker, not a rule maker. So from what we know so far, it includes rules about farming, fishing, youth mobility, e-gates, and a lucrative defence agreement. In other words, this is essentially a Norway -2 deal. All the rule taking, very few perks.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day.
Find ourselves to a future in which the EU effectively rules us in many, many respects, and yet we have no say round the table in Brussels. That is an absurdity.
If Brexit was about sovereignty, why are we now a rule taker? If it was about prosperity, where's the boost to the economy? And if it was about control, why are we celebrating doing what we used to do as members? So I'm going to give a brief breakdown of the deals. Fishing.
And the acid test of Brexit that the voters will face in 2020 is, have we got back our territorial waters? Are we like Norway, Iceland, the Faroese? Are we in control? And my suspicion...
Fishing?
Absolutely.
So the acid test for Brexit is fishing?
I think it is.
And this is interesting because essentially it's guaranteeing EU fleets 12 years access to British waters. It replaces annual negotiations, and UK vessels also gain access to EU waters, but via licensing. Annual quotas are negotiated, but EU fleets will still dominate the UK. And of course, Reform, Farage and the Conservatives all went mad over this, suggesting that Starmer had sold out the fishermen. But if you actually listen to those fishermen after Brexit, they've been wrecked and no one came to their aid.
I almost feel embarrassed that I voted out. I wish I could just turn back the clock.
Anywhere. They've promised us this, that and the other, and it hasn't. We're worse off now. We are. We're worse off than before Brexit.
Can't go in it, and the whole thing has become a complete mess. So all of the people that thought about leaving and it would all be rosy, it hasn't happened.
For farming, the UK now accepts EU sanitary and phytosanitary rules. So that means there should be fewer checks. And UK farmers, they now have to comply with EU rules. But all disputes have to be handled by the ECJ, the European Court of Justice.
Some, off-camera, say they regret their vote, missing EU subsidies and easier access to the European single market. He says just haven't come to pass.
I voted to leave, and I must say I've sort of wavered a bit, really. You know, I think if I knew what I know now, I'd have probably voted to stay in, really.
Hundreds of hectares of salad, but here whole fields of this Kent-grown crop have this year gone to waste. All because for the second year in a row, there's a huge shortage of people to pick it.
We probably wasted about between 50 and 20% of this year's crop. I've probably wasted about 150 tonnes of crop so far.
This year?
This year, yeah.
The Eastern Europeans who were picking this baby gem lettuce pre-Brexit haven't returned. Instead, farmers have had to look further afield, to the Far East.
There's been a mantra of trying to bring British people in. We've tried that hard. Absolute no-goer, just not happening. We've been in engagement with Maidstone Job Centre for 4 years and we've had not a single person through it. Not a single person. So please stop giving me that rhetoric because it's absolute garbage.
Youth Mobility Scheme. Young people 18 to 30 can now live, work in the UK and EU for 1 year. It's not full freedom of movement, but it's pretty close. And of course, the right-wingers, the GB Newsers, the Brexiteers, they all went a bit nuts over this, thinking that people were going to flood into the UK. But to be honest, more likely, British people are going to flood into Europe.
It really is nothing like sort of just come here and turn up and pitch up for work, as some people might think it is.
What, just like the people on the boats? Here we are again, drunk on cheap labour, because that's all it's going to be. Young people coming in, prepared to be paid less. The pound is probably still going to be higher than the euro, so it's in their benefit financially. They won't live like the normal people here because we've got huge bills and we probably, most of us don't live with our parents. So these people coming in will have huge benefits, and it would make our own young people suffer, do you not think?
Well, I mean, never mind whether we're going to count people on youth mobility. I mean, every day thousands of people arrive here from the EU without visas, and they could start working, and we wouldn't actually know any better. So it's not as if we're controlling everybody who comes in now, and in the future we won't be controlling.
Well, that's my point. Well, no, that's my point.
We don't control
but
anybody
David,
who comes in now.
David, that's my point. David, that was my point I was making.
So this does not make it any. This doesn't make this any different to system. This is just a different visa category. But I think more importantly, look, there are people in the UK who used to work as, say, tour reps or whatever in European resorts. They're not doing that anymore because they can't get a visa. And so you can see this as cheap labour, or you can see it as young people, I'm afraid I'm rather past this, young people who just want to go and have a couple of years experience working on the ski slopes in the beach resorts.
David, you can do that anyway. You can do that anyway.
Absolutely off her rocker if she thinks it's the same thing, because it clearly isn't. If you're an EU citizen, you can just turn up and apply for the job or send an email. If you're a UK citizen, it's completely different. Before the scheme came into place, it was on a case-by-case basis. You had to put in a visa application, and the employer had to support you without ever having met you. Sometimes the hire could take weeks or months. The cost to the employer was higher than hiring someone from the EU, and the administration was highly complex compared to hiring someone from the EU. She doesn't know what she's talking about. What a shock. A Brexiteer doesn't know what they're talking about. UK travellers can now get access to EU e-gates. That means easy travel and less delays that were caused by Brexit. But the irony is, this fix is reintroducing what we gave up. And finally, there is the Defence Fund, a £150 billion fund which the UK now has access to, designed to reduce EU reliance on foreign suppliers by investing in the European defence tech industry. But once again, the UK has no say on what happens within that fund and where it allocates the money. Once again, you are seeing a pattern. We want access, we want trade, but we then lose control over those things that we want to trade over, whether it's farming, fishing, or the defence industry. All we're gaining is essentially what we lost from Brexit. So we've become a union of rule takers, not rule makers. But hey, at least we got blue passports, right? So was Brexit completely pointless? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you've got this far in the video, I must have done something right, so please hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube subscribers. You do keep this channel going and growing. There is exclusive footage for members. If you'd like to become one, there's a link in the description. Or you can buy me a coffee. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.